I'm gonna let everyone in about 1 minute, y'all. It's 5:29 by my clock. Oh, there goes
Okay.
some. So 5:30. And we've got about 10 people in the 11 people in the waiting room, if I can speak. I'm gonna let them all in now. That's 5:30, and then I'm gonna give it like 2 minutes. Hello, everyone. We're gonna give it just a moment. People are coming to the waiting room. I'm getting them as we go, and then we will give it another couple of minutes. Then we'll start it. Group here. We've got over 100 people registered as of this morning, so we'll see how we do turn out. There's a lot going on in Portland tonight. I hear that people have their Valentine's stocking out. Hello, Betsy in Bangor. I see you there. Just letting folks in. Gonna give it another minute or so, and we'll kick this off. Just another maybe 30 seconds or so, y'all. We want to respect your time. We are recording this. So just know that. All right, I've got 5:32. So I'm going to go ahead and launch it. And if folks come in, I'll continue to welcome them. And let me start by saying thank you all for being here, for giving of your evening, for time for your community, wherever you may be in the country, or across a variety of countries. Because I know we have at least one Canadian here, our guest speaker. My name is Kerry Thompson. I'm the executive director here at Portland Downtown. We're a downtown improvement district. We've been around for 31 years and doing a variety of things to keep downtown clean, safe, and vibrant. Hopefully you know us from our good work, and we're very concerned with restrooms. It's been on our list of things for a number of years. I've been here a little over 3.5 years now, and it's been a priority since pretty much day one for me. So I'm gonna give a few housekeeping notes, have a few things to say as far as setting the stage. Richard Lehman with Visit Portland is gonna have a couple of quick things to say, and then we're gonna turn it over to Lezlie Lowe, our guest speaker here, who we've been fortunate enough to work with. I read her book some time ago and just was overly thrilled that someone's obsessed with this topic as I am. And one of our board members, great credit to John Sterling, who formerly worked in that industry, said you should just reach out, because to me it was sort of a like impossible connection, and I did, and we've been working together for a little while now, and I've really enjoyed it. So I'm going to show my slideshow here. I've just got a handful of slides. I know that those can be tough for folks to watch. And then I'm going to, but I'm going to go through them quickly. And then I'm going to turn it over, like I said, to Richard, and then to Lezlie. So here they are. One moment. Hopefully you can see those. One moment. I'm going to have to put somebody in. Okay. Briefly, Lezlie is our speaker, and if you haven't read No Place to Go, How Public Toilets Fill Our Private Needs, I highly encourage you to do so. It is really terrific. This is our brief schedule. I kind of covered it there. And I'm going to give some ground rules here for our effort. And I'm going to try and not read those slides to you, but I am going to make an exception in this case, which is to say that we believe here that restrooms are a public health issue. They're a human right. They should be clean, safe, and accessible. They should be for everyone, just like they are in your house. That the best practice would be to have restrooms staffed. That's our sort of highest and best. And we recognize that they're expensive to build, maintain, and to manage, and that public money is limited, and that it should be used judiciously. So this is the history of where we are here. We've been lobbying. Portland Downtown had some ARPA money. And that's from a few years ago, and that led to this effort that has evolved a little bit. We've also worked with our friends at Portland Society for Architecture. A number of years ago, we led what we affectionately called a pea shed walk. And those are, we started with a whole bunch of water and started with from various parks and walked around till we sort of realized where there were gaps in the area, so to speak. And you can see that of it here. That's where we kind of came up with our 5-minute walk shed, which we'd really like to be 2 or 3. And just to let you know where public restrooms are in downtown. Downtown, that's what we're talking about. These are historically where they've been. This is where some of that ARPA money is going, the Spring Street Garage. Currently, it's been closed for a couple of years. We do have the Casco Bay Ferry Terminal across the Spring Streets, right outside my office. I can literally see it. And at 420-ish block of Commercial Street, which is kind of by GMRI and Maple Street. We've got a couple of other spots, the Public Library and City Hall, but they're kind of available on a catch-as-catch-can basis. And those in that, you see that photo in the bottom right, those are the vaulted toilets that came out of the rescue plan funding. This is just something of a map of where we see public restrooms in our community and in downtown in particular. Where the yellow piece is there's where the gap. The red spots are where you'll find them. They just echo those things I said to you a moment ago. And let me briefly give credit where credit is due, and that's to the city of Portland, who has done some work in public restrooms over the last 3 years. There is currently 6 restrooms in process and 13 over the past New Year's. Now you see the vast majority of those are not in downtown. So we, as the organization that works on downtown, that's our concern area, but some things have happened, just to give credit where it's due. And we've also worked with the University of Southern Maine, and that's where it helped us color code this pea shed walk, as we like to talk about it. And it gives you ideas of where that 5-minute walk would be. Now, we're going to work on that a little bit. We'll talk more about it later. But just to say, this is some of the issues we've been paying attention to in terms of public restrooms. It's not just us here in Portland. This is an issue all across the country. This is just a recent article I read, and Leslie was quoted in it. And, there's some really interesting folks doing some really interesting work. This is one of my favorite Instagram accounts where they document the public restrooms in New York. So it's really, when you're into this stuff, you follow things like this. And just to say that, like I said, these can be expensive. And here's a recent article from the New York Times just a couple of weeks ago, where it talks about how San Francisco is working on a public facility, and they're $1.7 million into it, and they're not done yet. So that being said, I'm going to stop after this slide, and just to set the ground rules. And I'm going to have Richard's got about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes worth of things to say about tourism related efforts, and then we'll turn it over to Leslie. And these are our ground rules for today. They are, please do assume best intentions for everyone here on this call. Again, no name calling. I probably don't even need to say that, nor do I need to say be kind. We also recognize that folks here are trying to make a positive impact. Please do trust the intent and acknowledge the impact of things, not just what you say, but what happens. And also recognize that we can't determine someone's health just by looking at them. And finally, one thing I've really learned here is that when we talk about the issues of public bathrooms, sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable. So just know that. With that in mind, Richard's got a few words, and then I'll turn it over to Leslie.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Richard Lehman. I am the Director of Visitor Services for our destination marketing organization here in Portland called Visit Portland. I've been in tourism for many, many years and have had the opportunity to face public restroom challenges throughout the course of my tenures. I can say I'm not going to take up a lot of time. I'm really going to be stating the obvious here. But I'll back it up by saying more than 3 million visitors came to Portland last year. 3 million visitors. Many were overnight visitors, but many were daytime visitors. And they had one thing in common. They all had to use a restroom at some time. The lack of public restrooms is the #1 or #2 complaint that we get at the Visitor Information Center. The other one is parking. Parking and visitor and bathrooms are very, very rare here. And although we do our best at the Visitor Information Center down on the waterfront to provide safe, accessible, clean restrooms for everybody, it's not enough. We oftentimes have lines out the door, especially during cruise ship season or when motor coaches are in town. And that doesn't say anything about them walking 5 minutes from here into the Old Port or beyond up to Congress Street. So again, I'm just stating the obvious, but it's an issue that we need to address. Cruise Portland, Maine and the Cruise Maine Coalition has been working as much as we could to provide restrooms, and we're hopefully going to be part of this effort moving forward. It always comes down to money and placement, and I'm hoping that this effort tonight will help guide the path towards a successful launch of at least seasonal opportunities for people to do what we all need to do from time to time.
Thank you,
Thank
Richard.
you.
And without further ado, I'm really grateful that Lezlie Lowe is serving as our consultant on the master plan here. I will close after she speaks for 15 or 20 minutes or so with the next steps. And of course, we're going to take questions and answers as soon as Lezlie is done. So Lezlie is our expert. With that in mind, I really am looking forward to continuing to work with her, and more to follow shortly after this.
Thanks, Carrie. Can everybody hear me okay? Just give a little nod. Yeah, I just want to, okay. If at any point you can't hear me, just put your hand up on the Zoom or just flag me down so I can talk louder or do something. Thank you so much for having me today. I love to talk about public bathrooms. I would talk about them all day if I could. Sometimes I do. I'm going to talk about a few different things. The first thing I want to say, though, is when I do consulting work like this, I want to make sure everybody understands what my role is, and I really just aim to do two things. What I don't do preemptively is I don't go to an organization or a local government and tell them what to do, because every individual place has different needs and a whole bunch of different inputs that control how they can best address whatever needs they need addressing. So I don't do that, but I do try to act as a resource in order to help people get where they want to go. So I listen to the problems that people want to solve, if they have problems that they want to solve, and I figure out what the services are they want to offer or the goals they want to hit. And then I sort of act as a sounding board to help people move forward. A big part of that, which I think it's important to get out right off the top, is that I also help organizations see that there are things that they may not see. As knowledgeable as organizations and local governments are about their needs, they may not see some of the aspects of public toilets that are inherent to public toilets. So there's this kind of contradictory complexity to public toilets that I think is worth throwing out now, so we're all thinking about it in the same light. And it's public bathrooms are highly complex. I would argue they're some of the most complex infrastructural installations that groups take on, really. And yet they're seen as highly simplistic. Bathrooms are seen as rooms with toilets and sinks, and they're seen as something that should be just almost instant. Yes, we need a bathroom, let's throw one in here. Great, got it, good. And that's just not the case. The reason we think bathrooms are simple is because, as Carrie mentioned, we all have them in our own homes. And also because we use those bathrooms and also public washrooms, the ones that we inevitably use, all of us, everybody here, We use them almost without thinking a lot of the time. We don't put a lot of thought into those bathrooms. And so it's really important to understand that public bathrooms are highly complex. They're really, really complex. So I'm going to talk a little bit about best practices and approaches. So it's important from my perspective to think about the fact that public bathrooms are important because people cannot use cities and downtowns well or equally without this important public infrastructure. And so I said well and equally. I want to address those, sort of separate those things. Equally meaning they build equity, they build social justice, they allow everybody to use the public space that everybody has ownership in a place. But there also is the matter of economics, and public bathrooms make a lot of sense from an economic standpoint. And I always point out that one of the main ways you can think about how public bathrooms are an economic driver is to think about the mall. Every mall that you go to typically has a fantastic bathroom and a food court. And public spaces aren't quite the same. Malls have great bathrooms, not because the malls are providing these things out of the goodness of their hearts, but because the mall ownership understands that the more comfortable and safe people feel there, the longer they can stay. So the longer they can stay, the more they can enjoy the space and frankly make money. Obviously, malls and downtowns are different places. Malls are private commercial enterprises, and they can exclude anyone they want. Downtowns can't do that. Downtowns are different. Downtowns have a broad array of visitors, and they're using downtown spaces for a broad array of reasons. So it can be shopping, or it can be, as Richard mentioned, a mass number of tourists. It can be people who are commuting through the space, people who are going to school, it can be people going out for a date on Valentine's Day. It can be any number of things, including people who live in downtown cores and people who are unhoused, who are temporarily living in those downtown cores. So there's a lot of different users in a downtown space that are not the same as the mall. But I think it's really important to remember that there's still this fundamental, almost hidden economic argument for public bathrooms, because downtowns are meeting places and they are also economic engines. So I want to pivot a little and talk about equity by way of getting everybody who's here to think about a question. And that question is, who uses public bathrooms? And I think we can all have an automatic answer. And that answer is, well, everyone at some point in some place uses a public bathroom. But it's really important to think about different users' needs, which is to say, I'm going to run through a little, I often do this when I give a talk or do a consultation or a public forum. I'm going to get everybody to internally run through what kind of person they are, okay? And how they're different people, and how your needs might change vis-a-vis a public bathroom based on you. So we can think about whether someone is transgender or cisgender, because we know that trans individuals can face harassment and assault in public bathrooms that they're using that match their gender. We know that. So it's important to think that aspect through. Are you a caregiver, right? More women are caregivers than men. So that may be something more women who are here today say yes to, but it can be somebody who is older, a parent who needs care. It can be a child. And that, for me personally, was the reason I wrote the book that I wrote, was because I found myself in my city, Halifax, Nova Scotia, where we're having a massive blizzard right now, just so you know. I found myself with 2 children, and I realized I could no longer navigate the city the same way I used to navigate the city before I had kids. I lived downtown. I was a really firm downtown dweller. I used my city. I used it well. And as soon as I had an infant and a toddler, everything changed. Of course, everything changed, but bathrooms really changed for me. And I started digging into that journalistically and trying to figure out why. And the reason was because my effectively bathroom needs had changed. And suddenly I had to think about bathrooms in a different way. You can ask whether if you're a racial minority. So one thing that happened during the writing of my book, this was in 2018, was there were 2 men who were in a Starbucks in Philadelphia who were arrested. They were Black men. They were waiting to have a business meeting with a 3rd man, and they had gone into the Starbucks. They were waiting for him, and they didn't order because they wanted to buy his coffee. And one of them used the bathroom. It ended with an altercation. It ended up that they were arrested. Ultimately, what happened was it's shut down Starbucks across the US for a whole day for training. And it caused Starbucks to open all of its bathrooms to the public. That's since been rescinded. But basically, the CEO of Starbucks said, okay, you know what? We're not going to discriminate. Anybody can use our bathrooms. They've since gone back on that. But basically, what your status is, your race is, can change how well or poorly you can access a bathroom. Do you have health issues? That's a major thing to consider. If you have Crohn's or colitis, even if you are pregnant, you have different bathroom needs than another person who's not dealing with those conditions. So somebody with Crohn's or colitis uses the bathroom more frequently. There's greater urgency. So these are all things that are really important. And when Carrie talks about the work done around the pee shed, that to me is speaking to that issue, right? We need to have really good access because a lot of people have different needs than we may recognize because we only know our own experience and those of others that we're caring for. Mobility devices are a big one. And I know that there's been a kind of a sea change in the last, let's say, 80 years in North America in terms of accessibility in bathrooms, in terms of people who use mobility devices. And certainly strollers fall into that. And we see a lot of bathrooms that are accessible. They have at least one accessible stall. Other considerations are taken into account, but that's something that we still need to think about. Part of my book was about the fact that mobility devices like wheelchairs change in size over time. And so older bathrooms may not actually accommodate people, which is a problem. You can also ask whether you're middle class, which seems in part an absurd thing to think about. But people who are able to buy a muffin, for example, or buy a tea, have greater access to public bathrooms than those who don't, because they can always do that in a pinch if need be. I mean, I don't really worry too much about once I identify a bathroom, I know I'm going to get in because I know I can talk my way in. If I need to buy that muffin, I'm going to buy that muffin. That's fine. That's a real concern. Are you housed? So people who are unhoused and those who are profoundly unhoused, who are living rough, have a lot of difficulty finding bathrooms. Just generally speaking, the average adult uses the bathroom 6 to 8 times a day. You have problems finding, and then you may have problems also accessing, which gets to that middle class issue again. And the final one is, are you a woman? Because women take about twice as long door to door to use a public bathroom than men. And that means women need more provision than men. That's the reason we see bathroom lineups, by the way. If anybody here has seen women, has anybody seen a woman waiting in line for a bath? I've never had somebody say no to that during a talk. Yeah, so it's partly because women take twice as long, so they need about twice the provision. But what is typically seen in mid-century and earlier, mid-20th century and earlier public buildings is that buildings are designed with two genders, so one side male, one side female, equal floor space for each side. And on the men's side, where you might be able to fit 4 urinals and 2 stalls in the same amount of physical space on the women's side, you can probably only fit 3 stalls. So women need about twice as much provision. They often get about half of what men have. That's why you have public bathroom lineups for the women's and not the men's. Not because anybody's doing their hair or their lipstick. So this can seem really overwhelming, I concede, when I bring in all of these issues, and it is a bit overwhelming. And this in part speaks to the complexity of installing public bathrooms, but I just want to be clear that this is not prohibitively complex. It's just really important to think through the different kinds of users who may use the public washrooms that are being proposed. So just to recap this kind of best practices section, it's important for groups to think about the problem that they want to solve. If there's a problem, in other words, that may be something they want to deter. It's important to think about the goal that the group wants to achieve, or in other words, the service that they want to offer. And it's really important to think about these things through the lens of access for different users and economics to concede the importance of public bathrooms. Everybody good? If I keep going for another couple of minutes? Yeah, you're all with me? Okay, great. So I'm gonna just pivot slightly and talk a little bit about solutions, which will look a little bit more like considerations for public bathrooms. So I'm going to offer sort of different models of provision. And I know Carrie and I have talked about some of these already, but this is for everybody's consideration. So sometimes organizations are interested in putting in really high-end bathrooms. And by that, I mean bathrooms that are really beautiful or unique, and that end up kind of as tourist attractions almost in and of themselves. You see this come up on the international news all the time, like Tokyo has put in some magical bathroom that people are going to, they're super cool. Like undoubtedly they are super cool. The pros when we're dealing with those spaces they're typically well visited, and they get a lot of attention. So they're clean and they're well maintained. The con is you can spend a lot of money, a lot of capital investment on those bathrooms. And ultimately, those high-end bathrooms, setting aside the tourism draw, ultimately those bathrooms are probably not going to serve any greater number of users than a well-maintained utilitarian bathroom, right? People don't need a fancy bathroom. They need something clean and safe that they want to go to. Pivoting to utilitarian bathrooms. So when I think of a utilitarian bathroom, I think of garden variety, plain Jane, public bathroom. These spaces can often use the acronym is CPTED, which is Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. So that would be parts of the bathroom are designed such that they're vandalism proofed. So for example, there's no seat on the toilet. There's no mirror. There would never be hand towels in one of these bathrooms. They would only have a hand dryer. So the pro to these bathrooms is they get the job done, right? And they're much less costly often than fancy, big, beautiful bathrooms. The con is that they really, really depend, as with all bathrooms, on good maintenance. They really depend on good maintenance, because we know that if users have just 1 or 2 bad experiences in a public bathroom, the bathrooms will forever be like somewhere they're not willing to go. They will be forever dirty and unsafe and not worth visiting. So that can be a real problem. I'm going to talk about monitored bathrooms. So I don't mean by cameras or security guards. I mean buildings that are combo buildings where there's some other offering or organization in the building. That can be, you know, a tourist information plaza. It can be a shop. Libraries certainly would fall under this category. City halls would fall under this categories. The pro of those are that there's this built-in surveillance, but it's not really specific to the toilets. It's just that there's a lot of people around with an eye on things, so people don't feel like they're being scrutinized for using the bathroom. They don't get turned off. A con is that you need an organization that has hours that really match the hours you want the public toilet to be opened. So I've seen installations like this where it's, you know, only open on a Sunday from 2 to 5, which is great for Sunday from 2 to 5, but it's not really a comprehensive help to a downtown. I won't talk too much about so-called unmonitored bathrooms. I've already spoken a little bit about the problem with not maintaining bathrooms. It's really important that there's eyes on bathrooms multiple times a day, because it only takes one user with bad intentions to mess the bathroom up for everybody else for the rest of the day. The really important distinction that I want to highlight most of all is the difference between public bathrooms, and I use public bathrooms or public washrooms as a kind of catch-all, public washrooms and publicly accessible or publicly available washrooms. So this is, I'm just telling you, you're here for a public bathroom forum and we are getting in the weeds here. So stay with me, okay? Publicly accessible bathrooms are bathrooms that are open to the public, but they're in private or commercial spaces. McDonald's, Starbucks, Wendy's, right? The bathrooms we rely on all the time. So the pro is that they are low or no cost to organizations. You don't have to build them and you don't have to maintain them because they're paid for by businesses or organizations. The con is that ultimately these are private spaces and people can be kept out of them. So that may not, you know, allow a group to hit the goal of offering good provision for the public, because anybody can be stopped from going in for whatever reason the private organization sees fit. My personal take is I don't begrudge any organization that feels that needs to, you know, to control its space. I get that. But what we see as a result of that is that people are kept out. That's kind of a best case scenario. There are some jurisdictions where local governments will give tax breaks or provide other benefits to private bathroom owners so that they will advertise their space as public and open it up. But it needs to be really clear what that means for that organization. And finally, public. So public bathrooms are on-street bathrooms. They're paid for by tax dollars. Ideally, they're 24/7, but that's not always possible in all places. The pro to those are that they benefit everybody when they need the bathroom, no matter who they are, what they look like, what their health status is, what their housing status is. They are available for everybody. The con is everything I've already said. They can be complex and they are not cheap. So I'm going to wrap up my part of the presentation here just by adding one final comment, and that's just to say that it is so important that downtown Portland is engaging in this conversation, because what we have in North America generally is this this belief that bathrooms are not part of the common. They're not part of the basket of goods that we know that we need, and we know that we need to pay for in order to make sure the city works for everybody. So we think, you know, we expect there to be benches, we expect there to be stop signs and stop lights and street lights and sidewalks. There's myriad different things that we just understand our local governments will organize and pay for. And the reason they do that and the reason we don't push back is because we know those are necessary for our use of the city. We also have no idea how much those things cost. We never scrutinize that by and large. And every time a public bathroom goes in, the cost to the public bathroom becomes news. And we never have any qualms when they need to be replaced because of vandalism. We just understand, okay, somebody knocked over the, the street sign, put up a new street sign. Nobody thinks twice about that. In fact, we call and say, hey, when are you getting the street sign replaced? We don't think about public bathrooms that same way, but public bathrooms are perhaps one of the most, if not the most important elements in that basket of goods that we need for everybody to use the city. And that's where I'll leave it, but I'm happy to answer questions when Carrie's ready.
Thank you, Leslie. It's been such a
Sure.
pleasure to get to know her and to work with her. She's truly our leading voice in North America on this subject, and I am just grateful for that. Let me have a few words of our next steps, and then we'll take questions. What I'd ask is you use the hand raise function. I'll call you in the order that I see them. We'll try to get to everybody. We'll stay here as long as there are questions, and let me just so that's how we'll go about that. Our goals here is after this meeting tonight, we're using this as our launch to a master plan for public restrooms, particularly in downtown. Our goal, as Richard noted earlier, is to, with our partners at Cruise Portland, Cruise Maine, Visit Portland, and anyone else, frankly, who's interested. We welcome that. Call me tomorrow to have produce some seasonal restrooms as something of a trial effort for this summer to see what our next steps are and something additional to meet that P shed of 2 to 3 minutes, eventually 5 minutes, starting with 5 minutes and then eventually 2 to 3 minutes. So those are our goals from here, and we'll put that document out. We'll also publish we're recording this, so this will be on our YouTube channel for those folks who couldn't make it. And again, we'll always be a resource. You can always reach out to me at any point in time. So those are our steps on this end. Questions may come up, which I'm happy to answer on that. I can talk about the details of what we have some ideas about in public restrooms, but I'm going to stop talking for now, and I want to hear from our audience. So if you have questions, please raise your hand and I'll call them. I see Renee. You're the first person.
Oh, great. I have a lot of questions. I could talk about this all day also, but I will try to keep it to a few. One is when I was growing up, my mother told me, as her mother told her, and I told my daughter, you can always use a bathroom in a hotel lobby. And when I told my daughter this, we were actually dropping in at the Holiday Inn to use the bathroom, and I assured her it was fine. And I realized that that was actually a statement of privilege, and there are probably people who aren't telling their kids that. But there is a profusion of new hotels downtown, and I wonder if the city or Portland Downtown can reach out to them and see if they want to partner, put their names on lists of publicly available bathrooms. I always consider hotels to be publicly available. The other is to be sure, you're not just communicating with tourists, to be sure that your information is in all the languages that are spoken, or at least many of them that are spoken in the city, which is a lot. There are other private resources. Rennie's used to have a bathroom. They boarded it up. The Portland Museum of Art has a bathroom that you can get to without paying to get in. Whether you can partner with other places for which it can be a marketing tool. Come in to use the bathroom, look at the art. And finally, just the obvious question, are you going to fix the bathroom in the parking garage? And also there's one in that alley around near Gelato Fiasco across from Eden Molecular Store. Hi, Eden, I see you're here. Can you fix the ones, open the ones that are here? That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And thank you for being here. I can answer those questions, at least some of them. And something I forget, because there were a few there, please remind me. I believe I've had a conversation today that the Spring Street bathrooms, they've been bid at least twice. They came in both times overbid. They're around 50, give or take $1,000 overbid, and I know there's some review as to how to, meet that gap, be it through, value engineering and or fundraising, or, third option, player to be named later. But the goal is ultimately, to answer your question, to reopen those. As it relates to the restroom near Gelato Fiasco, that has been gone for quite some time, actually. Portland Downtown used to fund that resource, but it was in the parking garage. It wasn't a great location. That parking garage has gotten a rehab, and in that rehab, that bathroom is no longer there. As far as marketing to hotels and the like, I certainly don't want to speak for any business, but generally speaking, in the conversations I've had, that's not something most businesses really want to, promote or open their doors to. If you're a business owner and that's something you are interested in, reach out to me. I can have a conversation. I'd certainly be happy to have a conversation with anyone. I think that might be all your questions. I might have forgotten something. I see Sarah with her hand raised.
Hi, everybody. I have a question that I think is for Lezlie or maybe Carrie, because you've been getting so into this, about a relatively nominal fee for using bathrooms and how you consider that in the field of best practices. I spend a fair bit of time in Mexico, and it is incredibly common. The public bathrooms cost 10 pesos, which is about 50 to 75 cents, 60 cents, something like that. And I was just curious, in the best practices realm, if that is too much of a deterrent, because it certainly helps fund some of the staffing and some of the other things, and maybe just regulates it a little bit. So just curious what the thought is on that with all of your expertise.
Lezlie,
Carrie, do you
no,
want me
I'll
to-
let you go ahead. I know what you say in your book about it. So if your opinion has evolved.
Yeah. So it's Sarah, it's interesting because some even locally in Canada, we have that a little bit. So the problems with that are it ends up being a deterrent for people who are unhoused. And I talk about this in the context, which may or may not be an issue in Portland, downtown Portland. And this is where Carrie's grand rules about lack of comfort comes into play. But open defecation is a massive problem, right? It's leading to hepatitis outbreaks. It's gross. It's a major public health crisis in a lot of cities. And having a fee to use a toilet, even if it's minimal, 25 cents, let's say, is a deterrent for people. Because I'm in no way saying, okay, if you're unhoused, you're going to do that. That's your inclination. But it has certainly been shown through research that it is a deterrent. In terms of how much it brings in, it's a drop in the bucket, unintended, against the maintenance cost of bathrooms, which are not small. And there's also, I'm sure some of you have seen automated public toilets, which are the kind of robot toilets where you may put a coin in, the door opens, you go in, you have your 10 minutes to 20 minutes, then the door opens. No matter what, you're out, the door closes again, it goes through a self-cleaning cycle. They have quite a few problems with mechanical issues and just the collection of those. So they end up not really helping, not really giving people the access they need. And there are quite a lot of other factors that you don't really want to deal with when you're dealing with the bathroom. Does that help answer Sarah a bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. I kind of figured that would be the case, that it's quite a deterrent. I wanted to hear the person who's researched it. So thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Lezlie. I said Aaron and then Tom.
Lezlie, thank you so much for this. I know we've had a chance to chat a little bit before, and it's great sort of watching you get to talk to this whole big group. So thank you for that. I'm curious if you have any data about the willingness of downtown districts and communities to step up and contribute either through taxation or TIFs or whatever the, sort of municipal implementation would be towards things like public restrooms. Like, one of the things that I think is a recurring theme for me is that in order to create public restrooms and public infrastructure, you have to do it right. Otherwise, it's wrong. Otherwise, it fails. So in order to do it right, it costs money. In order to maintain it, to monitor it, as you're saying, it costs money. I think most business owners downtown would say that public defecation, lack of access to public restrooms are significant problems for their businesses. I think property owners would say the same thing. Personally, like in the past year, we've spent approximately $2,000 dealing with damage to our space because of public defecation. So we have had to sort of, outside of our control, invest in the damage from this issue. And I'm curious if you know about like willingness to proactively invest instead of having to sort of like pay the price afterwards.
You started and used the word data, and I don't have data because data is so scant when it comes to these kind of, I think we talked about that. So it's interesting because sometimes you get a local government that will kind of forge ahead, and as you say, just kind of think, okay, we got to get a bathroom, and they get the bathroom in, and then that's the worst possible thing to do. Because if the bathroom is not spectacular in terms of, and I don't mean high end, I mean like not well maintained, it ends up being a failure. And then the same local government is just going to be nervous about putting that money toward a fix, right? Because they got it wrong the first time, which is why it's so important that, people are heard from and we have these forums and these conversations. I think if you put it, I think that's why the economic argument is so important. I mean, like I write a lot about equity, but I'm a pragmatist, right? Like and for me, if you're a business owner, and maybe you're disinterested in the kind of social justice aspects around public bathrooms, that's fine. Like that's fine. But there's also this economic argument, right? And it's you not only will be preventing having to bear the costs of the damage, which you don't want to do. You probably would like to, if you have to spend that money, to have that money go toward something that is not only going to stop that damage before it starts, but also be something that helps drive people to downtown core. So I feel a little weaselly because I'm saying like, there's no data, but I think there's a really basic rationale. Budgets may be a limiting factor, of course, as with everything, but I think there's a good argument to be made for taxpayers to think about this rationally and think about the fact that it's needed and it benefits places.
And let me just thank you, Lezlie. Let me just follow up and say, yes, I mean, your book has sort of started some of this. There are some other organizations out there that do some of this on the global sort of scale. And when you get into this, you start to pay attention. But I'll note that in terms of like, this is where downtown Portland and Portland downtown are trying to lead, both the geography and the organization. We think there's a real opportunity here. So we want to be out in the forefront of this. And I will just follow up and note that, a couple of the things I may not have said earlier that we have explored, that perhaps it is worthy of some further exploration, which is something of an incentive to a business owner or the like to be in that sort of public restroom at some number of dollars. We have not been that number. Nobody's interested in that, to be frank. The other thing that we've looked at storefronts that are empty. There aren't a lot of them, fortunately, but there are some. And that's something that may require some further exploration as well. And finally, the thing I'm not sure I said as strongly as I meant to say earlier, which is that being attractive, as Lezlie noted, in this restroom, and that's defined in a lot of ways, is really important to us. And it can be a sort of a simple quote unquote level of attractive, but yet sort of more than utilitarian, shall we say. I saw Tom, but I think he may have disappeared. Raised.
No, I lowered my hand just so I wasn't building a queue.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for this public forum. I myself am a lifelong bathroom user, so this is something, you know, I really care about. It's nice to hear about all of the work that Portland downtown is kind of putting into this. And I'm curious, I have a question, but also an idea pitch. So stop me if the second part is not the right time for it. But I'm curious to know kind of the extent of the like public-private partnership that Portland downtown has kind of taken with the city of Portland, but also with businesses. One of the pitch here now is, you know, my understanding is that during COVID, there was kind of this boom in outdoor restaurant seating in Portland, and it kind of changed downtown for, in my mind, a lot of really good ways. I love eating outside. But then the realities of post-pandemic world came on, and these restaurants kind of got their spaces shut down due to health code, you know, concerns about the lack of adequate bathroom. So, you know, has there been any consideration given to like a public-private partnership where you say, hey, restaurant in the Old Port, if you pay a fee to the city for X number of years to help maintain or fund this public restroom, does that count towards your bathroom capacity? And hey, go ahead and build your $60,000 deck again because you have the restrooms now to facilitate that, right? And I think that there's a lot of ways that partnership can be expanded to not just restaurants, but also, you know, cruise ship terminals, and, you know, at 0.01% of port fees, right, could really drive some serious value there. And, you know, starting mostly, you know, in the downtown district to get some really nice restrooms. And I say nice as like, you know, my ankles aren't being tickled by the breeze in the vault toilets, right? So I think that there's a lot that could be done to kind of improve that. And I love the public restrooms, and I think that, you know, capitalism is a big driving force behind a lot of these decisions. So give businesses an opportunity to increase their headcount in a restaurant, right? And I think you could get some biters.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Tom, and thank you for that. We have done some exploration to that end. I don't want to go too far down the weeds in that, but and one reason is because I'm not a full expert that would require an engineer or an architect, but my understanding of the issue, and we did explore this particularly in one geographic area where we have a lot of investment as an organization, is that the main uniform building code, MUBEC, I'm going to get that wrong, is very specifically applies and is interpreted to apply to the individual business or restaurant or whatever the case may be. It cannot be usurped based upon the law as it exists by something akin to even a porta potty or something nicer. Doesn't matter if it's not in the physical building. That's my understanding. Don't quote me, as I'm not like I said, an architect or an engineer, but that's how it's been described. That being said, we have done some exploration as to what, you know, it would take a state law change to that end. We have not gotten there yet, but after this call, I welcome emails and phone calls and certainly greater experts than I to explore that, because I think that's something we'd consider through our advocacy committee. I got our two co-chairs here, so I don't want to speak for them, but I believe I have that right. Somebody will correct me here if I'm a little bit off base, but it's pretty close. I have a hand raised from MSH iPhone 2.
Hi, yes, thank you so much. This is Marie from Lisa Marie's Made in Maine. I appreciate this so very much, and I'm so grateful that Portland Downtown and everybody here is caring so much about trying to make this work. And I apologize if this is not the right place for this question. I recently, last summer, in the peak of Portland having not many facilities available, I had a very upset customer come in because she needed to use the bathroom and there was nowhere for her to use the bathroom. Then she decided to take it out on us by saying that we were personally responsible for letting her use the bathroom because she has Crohn's, And it left my employee who was alone later in the evening in a very precarious position. And so I was just wondering if there's any language or any sort of anything that I could have at my discretion, or that I could arm with my employees with, make sure that they have the education to prevent this sort of thing from happening in the future. I don't know if Lezlie, you have anything on that, or Carrie, you do. And again, I am sorry if this is not the right place for this question, so if you can ignore it, and I'm gonna stop rambling now. Thank you so much. This is really important. I'm grateful for you all.
Thank you. We won't ignore it. Lezlie, I have something to say, but I'll let you go first if you'd like.
Oh, so I'm gonna do what Carrie did last time he talked and say, like, I'm not 100% on this, so, but I'll get the rough edges. I believe in the US there is don't know if it's like a federal law. I don't think it's a state, because I can't think of the specific state, but if you have Crohn's or colitis or any other condition, you are actually entitled to use a bathroom in a public space. But I believe, my understanding is, you have a card. Yeah, and you need to show that card.
Yeah, that's close to what I was gonna say, which is
Yeah.
I get this from a few things. One, reading about this stuff all the time these days.
Yeah.
Two, from somebody I know has that condition, that has that card. My understanding is there are some states, Washington State being the one I'm familiar with, that you have a state law to this end. I'm not familiar with Maine having a state law to this end. And I can't speak on the federal side of things, but I say that in the sense that, like, if someone maybe has visited Washington State, or there are tourists, which is certainly not uncommon in downtown Portland, and they come from a state that might have this, I can see where they might have that expectation. Again, maybe there is a federal law that I'm not aware of. I certainly don't claim to be still that expert level of expert. I'll strive for it. We will look into that, though. That much I can tell you. Eden and then Aaron. You're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to support Lisa Marie, because I'm, just a little bit down the street from her, across from where the 4th Street garage used to have a restroom. And I just get people asking for a restroom every single day. And I feel terrible, because when I give them my options of the ferry terminal or the library or a hotel lobby, which I often suggest, they just look miserable and disappointed with me. And I haven't had anybody insist, so I'm grateful for that. But I always feel really bad. And I'd like to put it out there that in further conversations, we might need to look at the fact that there are different groups with different needs. And we might need something in the center of town that is specifically for tourists who can afford to pay and would feel more like coming back if they had access to something that was clean, and that there are other needs for unhoused people who also have a greater need on a more continuing year-round basis, and that those maybe aren't the same facilities. Thank you.
We're certainly, thank you, Eden, and thank you for being one of our great business owners. We are certainly very cognizant of the geography of where there are spots and where there need to be spots. That's part of where I think our plan will address, and some of our early stuff has. So thanks for your comments, Aaron, and then Betsy and Bangor, and then Jackie.
I just wanted to sort of like broaden the conversation a little bit by talking about something that I know we've talked about offline, especially because I know that there are folks here from different areas, not just Portland, who are sort of using this as a launching off point for their own public restroom endeavors. So I think in addition to the options of like standalone public restrooms, sort of like built out porta potty type restrooms, the really high end, pod or trailer style, there is another model that I think downtown districts have considered and implemented that I personally have been rallying for quite strongly, which is to take vacant storefronts and turn those into public restrooms. I know the downtown of Skowhegan has done this. And one of the benefits of a facility like that, where it's installed into a vacant storefront, is that it allows for year-round use, which acknowledges the fact that we don't only have to go to the bathroom in certain seasons, but it is a year-round need for every person. Additionally, it is easier to sort of like lock off hours. I think it also provides the benefit of having it be sort of like a dual use space. So like you could have, for instance, like a tourism office in combination with the public restroom, or various facilities, maps, etc., in addition to the restroom, which allows more eyes to be on it, which discourages vandalism, which discourages bad behavior. So I'm just sort of like throwing that out there as like another option that districts and downtowns can consider. Additionally, because they already have plumbing installed in them, it can be less expensive of an initial investment to convert a space with existing plumbing than trying to like install something, and or even having to like pump it out and maintain it through third-party services on a regular basis.
Thank you, Aaron. And that's exactly, we talk a lot about that. It's that plumbing issue that can be one of the big hurdles that people may not think about, and the plumbing makes a difference in between something that might feel like something more campground or temporary versus something where it has a flush. So we do talk about that a lot here. I should give credit to our friends at Ocean Gateway. That's not on our map. It's not on our map only because it's not in our service area proper, but it is listed in some of the bigger directories. So that does happen, but it is a bit outside of our area. But we definitely recognize the geographic gaps. I'm going to go with my friend Betsy in Bangor, and then Jackie.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, so this is Ben. I'm here with Betsy at the viewing party here in Bangor. And so one question that we had relates to substance use in restrooms. There's a lot of problems with substance use, including here at the public library, in public restrooms, where currently there's funding for public restrooms, standalone 24/7 public restrooms in Bangor. We haven't identified the locations yet as a city, but we are we're talking here at the watch party. We're just concerned about substance use and wonder if there are any best practices with public restrooms in general, but especially with those 24/7 standalone public restrooms.
Lezlie, I'll let you start.
Sure. Yeah, so that's a problem. It's a very wide problem. In terms of deterrence, it's kind of the same as many of the other behaviors that you may want to deter in a bathroom, cruising, for example. And it's really about eyes on the space, which is to say lots of people in, lots of people out. That doesn't stop it. You're never going to stop it, right? Because it's a social problem. What you want to do is make it, generally speaking, you want to make it so that people can be safe in those spaces. So you have, you can use that I mentioned crime prevention through environmental design. I don't love the notion of crime prevention in terms of substance use and dependency, but there are things that make it a lot easier to inject drugs in a bathroom. For example, it's having shelves. I will just say one thing, which is not going to help the answer, but having a shelf in a public bathroom is actually really important if you use an ostomy bag and you need to change it. So there are a lot of competing needs that come into play when you're dealing with public bathroom. And it's important to think about lots of different users, but above all, I think eyes on the space is one way of helping to reduce that, but it doesn't stop it. And I think, that's really, this is, as with many problems that take place in public bathrooms, it's a broader social issue that actually has nothing to do with the public bathroom at all. It's just that it ends up in the public bathroom.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything better to add than that. That's how you covered it in your book. And, I was really interested because you really address the blue lights in some countries, and I'd seen that from Rick Steves, and touting that some years ago as a I'm going to call it solution, but that's probably not the right word. And then really have rethought it, having read your book and a lot of other things. So I will just briefly mention that I think that goes back to our highest and best philosophy here of staff bathrooms are the ideal way we do it, the best ones I've personally ever seen in my life. And now I mean, I look at this everywhere I go. You can't unsee it. Is in San Francisco, where they have what they call the pit stop program. And it's a lot to it. I'd encourage you to look it up. It is truly the best one I know about. I don't know that we'll get there, but that's what we strive for. Jackie and then Sarah.
Thank you. Excuse me. I just want to speak as a senior woman to say that as a senior woman, I walk around this city quite a bit, and when a senior woman has to go, she has to go. So it is really, really something that we don't have this, especially being a tourist town. If I'm finding that as a resident, it must be very hard for senior citizens that are coming into our city too. So I just wanted to put that out there, and then I have to go off. And I thank you for doing this, and I'll look for the recording to be shared, to share with others. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Jackie. Sarah and then John.
Yeah, thanks. Again, thanks for doing this. It occurred to me that I should come on here and say that I'm the executive director of Cruise Maine. So the cruise ship tourism, I'm under the Office of Tourism. Cruise Maine is part of the Office of Tourism. And so I absolutely understand that this is both an issue for cruise passengers and visitors, and it further taxes the limited resources that the city has in that peak season. And I do think Tom mentioned cruise ship fees that are really quickly in passing. Just to get a little perspective on scale, you said 0.01% of cruise ship fees. That would be less than $400. So it's not, I just want to give a little sense of perspective on what the city does get in cruise ship fees, and there's a lot of competition for that, but that does go through the city budget. And this certainly is something that cruise ship fees have been used for in other cities. And so I feel like there's I'm trying to say something positive here, that this could be part of a funding solution for at least some of the busiest corridor. And then I think it was Eden who said there might be multiple solutions that are needed here. The influx in our peak season is a lot more than what we need year round. We do need year round bathrooms in downtown Portland, 100%. We need more, significantly more in peak season. And peak season for cruise ships is September, October. Peak season for the rest of tourism is more like July and August. So I think just putting a few points there that I wanted to mention while we had such a great group of interested citizens and business owners and organizations here. So yeah, we want to be part of these dialogues, and thanks for putting it together, Carrie.
Yeah, thank you. It's been good working with y'all. We'll continue to talk. John.
John Sterling. I'm on the Portland Downtown Board, like Aaron, and so we were lucky enough to have earlier conversations with Lezlie. And Lezlie, you spoke earlier about super cool bathrooms and utilitarian bathrooms. And let's imagine super cool is at number 1 and utilitarian is number 10. Flip the usual here. How important do you think it is to have not either one of those, but to have attractive bathrooms? In other words, you've got a dial and you're trying to dial up the perfect bathroom. I know that's not possible, but nevertheless, my own observation is that if people look at a public restroom and say utilitarian, that tends not to be a good thing. They look at a super cool bathroom, it's got a whole different response. But I'd love to hear your thought on that, and then I want to ask a second question if I can.
Sure. So I think that what's important, the kind of kernel of it, is respect engenders respect. so that when you enter a space, and I'm sure everybody here tonight has a sense of this already, is like when you enter a space and the space is well cared for, and clean, and it meets your needs and it's well stocked, then you will treat that space, generally speaking, unless you have ulterior motives, generally speaking, you're going to treat that space with respect. So I don't think it needs to be super cool to be good. I think when I say utilitarian, all I mean is meets needs. What happens with utilitarian bathrooms sometimes is that they start to bleed into unpleasant, like industrial bathrooms in
Exactly.
in a negative sense. Those bathrooms without hand towels or without mirrors, or that you can't turn the tap on because it's one of those push taps, which is not good for hand hygiene. Like it starts to go down the slippery slope, and it ends up being a not a nice bathroom, even when it is clean, because it's not a pleasant space. But if you can find that middle ground of like, okay, this is a pretty nicely designed space, and it's, it can be simple, but it's clean and it's well maintained and well stocked. I think that's really where you want to go for almost every organization.
I would also add that when a bathroom is unattractive from the outside, and sorry to mention it here, but the city did put up what we call the black boxes, and you see these, and it's right away, to my mind anyway, a little off-putting, and I think I've heard a lot of other people say the same. So I think from the outside, it's also important to try to make a bathroom attractive. My second question is actually one I've asked you before. So sorry for repeating it, but that wasn't a public forum. I said, so what city is really good at public bathrooms? And you said, well, there really aren't very many, but I guess I'd have to say San Francisco. 2 weeks later came the article about how San Francisco has spent $1.4 million on a bathroom, and it hasn't worked out. So I thought that was pretty revealing, because I know you're right about San Francisco, but that's how hard it is. I think that's one of the things you've done a great job explaining tonight. But I would also say that your book is a tremendous resource. You are a resource. It's been great to have you on this public forum and your help more generally. But what I wish is that there was, what Ballotpedia is. I mean, we all know what Wikipedia is. You wish there was a Restroomopedia or something like that. Ppedia? I don't know. But I do think, however, that it would be wonderful if you personally would decide to create we pay for it, a great resource for public restrooms, because the fact of the matter is, Carrie and I and Aaron too spent some time thinking about, well, so who could help us with this issue? One name came to mind, not 2 or 3 or 4, but one name, and that's yours. Now, fortunately, you're really good at this, but there was no one else, which is kind of amazing. So just to say, I wish that there were more resources available to Portland Downtown as we work on this, to other groups like ours. I mean, hello, Bangor. There are a lot of downtown improvement districts around the country. Our country is terrible at providing public restrooms. Yours is a little better, I think, but if you know of any resources that we're not aware of, we'd love to hear about them. And thank you again.
You're more than welcome. It's been a delight to work with Downtown Portland and all of you. Okay, so I want to say a couple things. One is San Francisco, and people who are participating tonight can look up some of the things I'm about to mention. So San Francisco has, as Carrie just mentioned, the Pit Stop program, which is this great model of surveilled. That sounds like the wrong word, but like staffed public washrooms, which has worked really well, in the sense that San Francisco had a massive problem because it put in a ton of automated public toilets, which I mentioned before, and they just were disaster, right? They were, they weren't maintained because they weren't stocked well enough. They weren't visited. They broke down. People jammed the doors and started living inside them, and it was just not working. And the Pit Stop program really turned that around. The other cities I want to mention, and with every city has its problems, but every city has its shining lights too. New York is a great resource in terms of high-end bathrooms. You think about the Bryant Park Public Bathroom, which is a business improvement district bathroom. It's behind the main branch of the New York Public Library in Bryant Park. It's a fantastic bathroom, staffed, lovely, beautiful. That's a high-end bathroom. The Portland Loo, which is something that was designed and created in Portland, Oregon, which is an on-street, off-grid public bathroom that has hand washing on the outside, which is great because it means people aren't in there for very long. It's got a louvered bottom, so you can see if somebody's in there. It's got a water bottle filler on the outside. So these are bathrooms that are quite utilitarian. They, as I mentioned before, like bathrooms that bleed into kind of overly industrial, and they do that a bit, but they work well. And people in Portland, I have seen this, people use them. They work. And so that's another example of like that council decided that it wanted to solve the problem of unhoused people not having a place to go. But when they actually approached the problem, and I've done several interviews with people who helped design this bathroom and helped got this in motion, how they approached it was they said, we're not designing a public bathroom for unhoused people. We're designing a public bathroom that works for as many people as possible. And it worked very well. In terms of resources, there is scant resources. It's because nobody wants to be the toilet lady, but me, I'll be the toilet lady.
And I'll be the toilet man.
All right. Yeah, so yeah, there are scant resources. There's some organizations that I think Flush, PHLUS, portable, oh gosh. Public Hygiene Lets Us Stay Human is the acronym. So that's out of Portland, Oregon. And that's an organization. I think they have a public bathroom toolkit, which I'll try to find and send along to Carrie, or you can Google it. But yeah, there's scant resources.
Yeah, they do. Thank you, Leslie. We got a couple of hands raised. I see we're losing people. We're at the 75-minute mark, so I totally understand. Thank you very much for being here. I'll stay as long as we've got questions, Doug and then Sally, but I know folks got to make dinner and the like. So Doug.
Yeah, I won't take up much time. I just want to thank you. I put in the chat, I'm from Bangor, and I'm really here to compliment you and thank you for having this discussion and to be focused on this. We are painfully slow in Bangor on some of these issues, particularly around the unhoused population. But I'm glad you mentioned, Leslie, that, this isn't an issue just of unhoused. I think in Bangor, many of us have focused on it in terms of the unhoused. But I had a mother who had severe rheumatoid arthritis, also had Crohn's and colitis, and she wouldn't go shopping because she was always afraid she wouldn't get to her bathroom in time. So it's universal in some way. I'm sure we can all think of someone in our life who needs a bathroom. And I congratulate the guy who said he's been a lifelong bathroom user. That was a great comment. But I want to thank you. And I also want to know, is this recording available, Carrie? Because I'd like more people in Bangor to see it. I'm glad Ben at the Bangor Public Library and others are watching, but I hope more of our elected officials will also watch. We have decided to go with some of those. I think someone called it a black box. I think we're looking at the black box model finally, after 2 years of discussing. But in Bangor, we send people to the library. We say, go to the library or go to City Hall, maybe go to the bus station if it's open, because that's it. So just thank you. And sometimes if you think you're behind the curve or not doing well enough, you're oftentimes light years ahead of some of us. So thank you.
Thanks, Doug. This recording will be available. May take me a day or two to get it up on our YouTube channel, but we'll push it out on our social and e-blast and that sort of thing. So yes, we will make it. Anyone across the world will be able to watch it. Sally, you're on mute.
Okay. Hi. I just have a couple of questions or comments. First of all, if this goes into effect, and hopefully it will, what's the next step? Hire somebody to design this how do you decide what to do?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. On the Portland downtown, and I can speak, we've got some partners, obviously, Visit Portland, Cruise Maine, Cruise Portland, a variety of other folks. The city's been good to work with. And we have a committee on our end that has been discussing this for, I don't know, going on 3 years now. So as somebody said, nothing is fast. We're going to be developing that plan and we'll share it with folks. So, it may need some edits or adjustments once we make it public. That's certainly, like all plans, it's probably not static. But I can say that we are really, we desire strongly to host a seasonal restroom, seasonal washroom this summer season. I have been in contact. If there's an organization within the US that rents or produces bathrooms, the Portland Lou folks, a variety, Urban Blue, you name it, I have talked to them. Now I have opinions on each and every one of these. Some are better than the others. I've talked to some colleagues. I'm fortunate enough to be a member of the International Downtown Association, like my friend Betsy in Bangor, and we have conversations through this world where we talk about the various ones and what works in different communities. Sometimes what I've learned is experimentation is really what teaches you about your community more than anything else. So we have a couple of thoughts in mind. They are going to take money. I think my board, I don't want to speak for them. They got a couple of representatives here, but I think it's fair to say that we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. But we can't be the only bit of money in that bucket, to mix some metaphors there. So we're going to be looking for some partners to help us on this. So that's where we stand, but our goal is to have one this summer and then learn from that. And, in fact, the long-term goal is that 2 to 3 minute / 5 minute P shed adjustments, placements, and for them to be, very nice restrooms. That is a lifetime goal, frankly. But we're going to start. We're going to eat this elephant one bite at a time.
And is anything being done to address the homeless, and maybe in their own part of town or something like that?
Well, I think they're unhoused individuals all across our community, and there are, one of those slides I showed earlier showed how the city had put out 13, I believe the number is, of the vaulted toilets in the last, I think it's 3 years. I know they have plans for, I believe it's 6 more in the coming series of months. So that's a goodly number. If you're referring to there were some porta johns, I guess you'd say, like in the Preble Street area. I don't think those have been, porta johns are really, they're not ideal. They're what you see at a concert or a festival or something like that. So
is there a committee of people downtown to work on this?
There's a committee working on public restrooms, yes.
How would one get on the committee?
You reach out to me tomorrow or tonight. No, we'll follow up. Probably not tonight.
I also wanted to mention in the chat, there's a lot in the chat to see.
Sorry, I hadn't been able to keep up with all of it, but I will do my best to answer them as I'll try. It's just a lot going on here. Tom, you're next.
Yeah, just quickly, because I know it's getting late here and I've started cooking dinner. But has there been a thought to rebranding just from the word P shed to something a little more attractive? Because, I'm not sure I would go to a P shed, and I've gone to some weird places.
Yeah, no, we're not going to call the restroom a P shed. A P shed is the walk, and that's how long it's sort of like a walk shed or
like a watershed.
Yeah. It's how long you can go, how long the average human.
Got it. That is much more clear now. Thank you.
Sorry for any confusion. Isaac, I see my friend Isaac from New Jersey. I've known him for a long time. How are you, sir?
Hey, Carrie, it's been too long. Thank you for putting this out there. It's actually in our work plan in Princeton, New Jersey. But the one comment I want to make to you as you're wrapping up, is we really should think about how we can exchange, some of the knowledge, that's been developed around this issue, but also to be able to share some of our outcomes or results that we come up with, because for a town with about 1.4 million visits a year, we do have some things in common with Portland, and we're already several steps down our road with expanding our accessibility. So I'd like to provide that invitation to have some active sharing between our two towns.
I think that's great. Count me in. I think we have each other's cell phone numbers. I know we have each other's emails, so we'll be in touch.
Hey, Carrie, I'm just going to barge in here since I don't see other hands up. And first of all, to say thank you again to Lezlie. Really wonderful to have your help on this problem. Second, just speak for a moment about another, what I would call super cool idea. And that is, everybody who's been part of this tonight, or almost everybody, hears all the time that when people come to Portland, those 3 million visitors we get every year, one of the things they always mentioned are the restaurants, not the restrooms. But wouldn't it be cool? And I know Carrie shares this ambition. If people thought of Portland, Maine as a place to go because they have great public restrooms. And I really believe that if we all go to work on this, and it's hard work, as Lezlie said. It is expensive to put bathrooms in, all of that, but I really don't see I don't think there's any reason why Portland can't, and Portland Downtown can't say, we want to lead the way in this issue. This is not just important for our city, it's important for cities all over the country. And it would be great if we can, working with Lezlie, help make that happen. So just a general comment. Thanks again.
Thank you, John. You're right. I agree. I mean, as we said on one of our calls, there's no reason we can't be the leader in North America or the world on this. And that's certainly our goal here at Portland Downtown. So we're committed. Well, that's why we're doing all of this stuff. So we thank you all for being here tonight. We thank you all for being great citizens in your community, wherever it may be across the US or Canada or anywhere else. And hopefully everyone has got my contact information. If you registered for this, you should have it. I welcome outreach and input. And so with that, unless there are any other questions, I'll say thank you and good night. I don't know, Lezlie, if you have any parting words as well, but if not, we will let you stay warm from the storm.
Just, oh yeah, the storm, I forgot. Just thanks to everybody. It's been great to hear from all of you, and it's so heartening to know so many people are caring about this issue. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Happy Galentine's and Valentine's Day, and we'll see you soon.